Hello, welcome everyone. Okay, you're in for a treat, audience. Carol Patrizi here, honored to be speaking with the lovely Kerry Siggins. And I'm going to tell you, I don't know what she doesn't do. That would be easier. She's a CEO, an author, a speaker, an advisor, and I'm going to let her introduce herself properly as if we know one another, I prefer people to introduce themselves so that it's done properly. So, Kerry, welcome. Thank you for being here. Please let the audience know
Sure.
who you are, the real Kerry Siggins.
Oh gosh. Well, I don't know if we have all that time because I have a very complex life and a very complex background. Yeah, I am Kerry Siggins. I'm the CEO of a company called StoneAge. Our primary business is we make industrial cleaning equipment, so high tech squirt guns on steroids. We sell our products to industrial cleaning contractors who go into any kind of heavy industry plants. So refineries, chemical plants, food processing plants, shipyards, anywhere you'd use ultra high pressure water to clean. Our products are used there. And we make tools that screw on the end of nozzles all the way to now autonomous robots that are cleaning with fewer human beings, which is much safer and much more efficient. So really transforming the company from a traditional manufacturing company into a technology company. So really busy with that. And we're an employee-owned company. I've led us through the transition into an ESOP. I was hired by the founders 18 years ago to take over for them, and we decided that we wanted to sell the company to the employees as part of their exit strategy. So that's why you see Own It everywhere behind me. It's why I have my book, The Ownership Mindset, is that I'm a big believer in teaching people how to think and act like owners and the benefit that you get when people are really engaged in their work, and the even bigger benefit you get when people actually get to truly benefit from the success of the company based on actual ownership of it and using it as a real mechanism to build wealth. And so I'm married. I live in Durango, Colorado. I have an 11-year-old son. I'm an avid mountain biker, reader, runner. I love anything that's active, and that's me.
What did I tell y'all? What she doesn't do would have been a shorter list. I mean, you're just crazy impressive. Let's just say
Thank
it.
you.
Amazing. And before we jump into ownership, accountability, a lot of what your book shares, how in the world did you get into that line of work? Because 18 years ago, that was predominantly
Oh, it
male,
still is. Yeah.
and it still is, right?
Yeah,
So
it still
how did
is.
that
Yeah.
happen, Carrie?
So I was 28 when the founders hired me to take over. I had no idea what I was doing, but they decided that they wanted to they wanted something to do different with their business. And so the candidates I was up against, they were more what I would call traditional candidates, white men in their 50s with manufacturing experience. But here I came in, clearly bright, driven, but potentially something that was really different. They were forward thinking founders. And so they took this big risk on me. How I got to Durango. So I grew up in Colorado. Went to Colorado School of Mines, which is an engineering school in Golden, really tough, very focused, science, STEM, basically kind of school. After I graduated from mines, I went to Austin and I worked in manufacturing and sales there. But I developed substance abuse issues in my 20s, and I went to some really dark places, and I actually accidentally overdosed on Labor Day of 2006. And that was rock bottom for me. I was high functioning. I was very driven, very ambitious, working hard, but I also just partied very hard.
Yeah.
And it was a wake up call for me. And so my mom lived in Durango, and I called her and said, I need to come home. I need to figure out my life. I don't want to live this way anymore. And so she said that I could do that. So I packed up my bags from Austin, Texas, in November of 2006, and I did not have a job here. I had no friends. I had no idea what I was going to do, but I just know that I needed to be back in Colorado and home with my mom. And so when I got to Durango, I started looking for a job, and that's how I found StoneAge. And I don't think I'd be alive, honestly, today if it weren't for StoneAge. I think it allowed me to take the intensity that I live my life and pour that into figuring out how to build a business, scale a business, and be a leader who is worth following.
Incredible. First of all, thank you for sharing that because I believe that one of the characteristics, if you will, of leaders. Um, I believe that leadership involves vulnerability and sharing stories. And I think that, I love that you said you took the intensity with which you live your life and poured it into something that's so good.
Yeah.
And you continue to do that by helping others and sharing your story. So thank you from me
Yeah.
and all the audience.
Thank
Uh,
you.
very cool story. And I want to stay focused for this particular conversation on accountability. Well, for you, what's amazing is what I hear it was you had such awareness even as you were going through living your lifestyle and, getting involved with substance abuse, which I don't drink anymore and haven't for many, many years. Say it just wasn't my friend.
Yeah.
Uh, so I can really relate to that intensity statement because it was
Yeah.
work hard, play hard. You started with this awareness, but then this courage and strength to reach out to your mom and say, I don't know what I need, but I know I need to come there.
Yeah.
So, where did you find the direction to say, okay, I'm here, I'm accountable, I'm going to own this, and I'm going to share this in good ways with everyone I meet?
Yes, I have an interesting relationship with responsibility and accountability because I'm so driven. I was always and with my personality style, I was always able to make things happen. And so I really was able to take accountability in some aspects of my life. I tell a story in the book about when I was 13 and in junior high school, and I was getting in trouble in class, and the teacher called my mom and wanted her to come in, and my mom said, "No, you two need to go figure this out," because I was constantly complaining about the teacher, and we had this really powerful conversation where I could own my behavior and take responsibility for it, but also give him feedback on how I felt in class. And so I learned at this young age, like what happens when you lean into those difficult conversations and when you have the courage to look at your own behavior and admit, like, I'm not doing some things right, and also have the courage to be able to share your experience with someone else. And so I had a lot of that in my life, but in throughout my life, but then in my 20s, I got lost, and I was dealing with feeling like I didn't belong, and feeling like I had to portray this false sense of success because people wouldn't like me. I definitely had this thing that people wouldn't like the real me. And so, I just, there were some of those choices that I wasn't accountable to. And I was not really willing to look at my life. I would not have admitted that I had a problem, even though I knew that I had a problem. But I was really, quick to point out how much worse other people's problems were than mine. And not really taking that accountability for like just how bad it was going. I was just numbing and not really looking at my life.
Mhm.
And what the wake up call for me, it wasn't actually almost dying. It was the fact that I couldn't go to work. And I always went to work. No matter what, I always went to work because that's what I had built this whole persona on is I'm successful. I make all this money. I'm climbing the corporate ladder. And when I couldn't go to work for a couple of days as I was, getting my strength back after my overdose, that is where the shame set in. And that is when I said, that is it. Like I always said, I could always make it okay because I went to work. Like somehow that justified the behavior, but when
Sure.
I couldn't do it, that was it. And so, but it was actually something that my mom said to me. So when I called her and I told her everything, and she knew that I was struggling, but just not how badly I was struggling. But she said something to me. She's like, I've been listening to you for the last 5 years lament about your job and your career, and you're not growing fast enough, and you want to be a people leader. And I was watching, the words that you were saying not align with your actions and behavior. And I think you have so much potential. Like you can change the world, but you have to start leading yourself before you can lead others.
Mm.
And I had never heard of this concept of self leadership. Lead yourself. What does that mean? And it sparked something in me. And that's when I really started diving into this idea of personal responsibility, accountability, the ownership mindset, which, that language came later on. But
Yeah.
that's it. When I said, I'm taking responsibility for everything that happens in my life. So that was kind of the turning point for me when I realized like, I know how to be accountable, but I am not doing that right now.
Right. You know, that's huge. And that seems like you were young. I mean,
Hmm.
and you're still young, but in your 20s,
Yep.
and you realize that. I do find it amazing that it wasn't almost dying, it was not being able to go to work.
Yeah.
You were that dedicated to this persona.
Yes, it was. It was toxic, actually, quite frankly. Um, and I examined my relationship with work very deeply. Look at all the things that I do, right? You said, how do you do all this? Like, I love to work. I have this crazy work ethic. I learned that from my mother. My mother was a single mom. She worked multiple jobs. She put herself through college when I was 10 years old so that
Ugh,
she could become a teacher, so that she could make a better life for herself and live her passion. So and she drove 60 miles each way to the town that there was a college in. And so I just watched her work so hard, but continuously struggle. And I knew I didn't want that. And so I had this work ethic, but it was always about, more, more, more. And I still have to examine that relationship with myself because I want to achieve big things and I want to make a dent in the world. And I think that I'm here for a reason, right? I have a second chance at life, and I'm not going to screw that up. But yeah, I have to examine that relationship with work and make sure that it doesn't take me to some dark places, like that old persona, which I have, learned how to let go now after years of coaching and therapy and self
sure.
work. That I don't let it take over my life.
Well, first of all, you know what? Thank you, Father, for incredible mothers.
Oh
And
yes,
I mean, wow, what I'm fortunate to have an incredible mother as well. But I love that you literally watched her do that and the difference that the change in so many ways. You took what her incredible example and it has evolved into just more beautiful things for a life and a lifestyle. And you said she would work so hard but still struggle.
yeah,
And I think part of this conversation about accountability, it's the opportunity, sure, to work hard. If you're gonna go to work for yourself, as you know, because you do that as
yeah.
well as work
Hmm.
with this other wonderful company, you're saying, okay, I'm gonna let the 9 to 5 go and I'm gonna pick up at 24/7.
Hmm.
But hopefully the 24/7 is more joyful.
Exactly,
And,
exactly.
if everybody in the audience, I'm covered in chills, can hear that, whatever it is, Carrie's example to us is she knows it and she knew it, but she, like all of us, daily, we have this, I call it the practice of surrender.
Yes.
That balance, you still have to every day think about it,
Yep.
make that surrender, and then move on so that it can be joyful.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
Carrie.
and it's really interesting that you say the joy because I think that's been something that a lot of people struggle with, and I know that I have, is
Mm,
that I have a really hard time, even though I'm an incredibly happy, optimistic, joyful person, I
yes.
have a hard time receiving joy and experiencing joy because it's always like what's next. And I hold myself to really high standards. And so, if I'm not doing something, then I feel guilty that I'm not doing something. And I'm 45, and as I certainly as I'm maturing in my life and in my leadership, I realize that there's power in not doing, in resting, and giving yourself time to think, and in knowing who you really are without this persona of success or achieving and all of those things. And so, that's the accountability piece that I'm holding myself to now is how do I experience more joy in my life and stop just to say like just sitting here in my chair looking out the window drinking a cup of coffee is 100% enough right now.
Right.
And yeah.
Oh my goodness, it's the truth. I think that
Hmm.
something else you said was always wanting more.
Yeah.
And I do believe, it was not in this context, but I think it was Franklin Covey that said, that there's such power in the gap.
Yeah.
And I think you getting to that place that you can think, wow, I did a lot today. Let me just sit here and allow myself to celebrate that joyfully and stay present. I do also think, did you find yourself in that almost already moving into the next thing as you knew something was completing, you didn't ever just experience that completion.
Mhm.
You were already out of the present moment.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I like to think that I'm a lot better at that than I used to be because what's the point of it all if you can't feel proud, you can't experience joy, and if you're just working yourself to the bone, and everything's can struggle then, right? Your health, you can have health challenges, you can have relationship challenges, and so yeah, that's a big piece of like as I look at what I want my life to look like, and that's where personal responsibility and accountability really have to come into play. It's like, this is how I want to show up as a mom. This is how I want to show up as a human. And here's how I want to show up as a spiritual being that is trying to experience life fullest, not just experience life through work. And so, yeah, that's the journey that I'm on right now as I am in my second half of life, is that there's just something that's so much more than just achieving, getting another award, writing another book, even though I'm writing another book.
You are writing another book, though. You're pretty close
You
to the
know,
end of it.
I know. I just finished the first draft. But yeah, and to me, before I would feel bad about that. And now I just realize it's just part of the journey. It's just part of the experience. And how do I just roll with that experience rather than attaching a negative thing or a positive thing to it? It's just an experience. And so that's where I'm at this phase in my life. And I'm a lot happier, to be honest. I'm a lot
Ah,
happier. Yeah.
I'm so happy that we're having this conversation, and I know the audience is so happy about it. Well, what would you say to the audience for people? Because, most of those listening, they want more. There is something that they want more. They want to embrace accountability and ownership. Maybe they do in many areas, but not in others. What advice would you give for this group from where they are, no matter where they are?
The power of your mindset is amazing. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with wanting more. I want more. I want to leave a huge impact on the world. I might run for office someday. I might run for president of the United States someday. You never know. So
Mm.
there's nothing wrong with wanting more. And in fact, you should put a zero on anything that you're doing. If you want to save $10,000, put another zero on it. If you want to impact 100 people with your coaching, with your keynotes, put another zero on it. Right? Go bigger, because we only have this one life to live, and that's how we should live. Go after our dreams with full gusto, and it whatever that looks like for you. But I think the key to really building the life you want is, one, you got to know what you want.
Mhm.
I love the quote in Alice in Wonderland when she comes up to the Cheshire Cat and she says, "Which path should I take?" And he asks her, "Well, where do you want to go?" And she says, "Well, anywhere will do." And then he said, "Well, any path will get you there." And that's so true. And you don't have to have it all figured out, right? It is a journey and it's going to shift, but you have to know what you want. Like, that's how the power of manifestation works, is power law of attraction, is you've got to know what you want and where to go. Write it
Absolutely.
out. This is, and write it in like you've already achieved it, because your brain, it lives in the present moment, and you tell your brain like, I've already achieved this. Like, it thinks that it's happened, and it's going to help motivate you and help those things align in your life. So have a plan, be really clear on what you want, and talk about it like you've already achieved it. And then start executing. And it's really amazing what you can do when you're like, "Hey, this is what I'm gonna do." Like I said, I'm gonna write a book. I want to write another book. This is what I'm going to do it by. And I had my whole plan and I said, okay, this is the weekend that I'm going to finish it. And I do those things. And so it creates that kind of discipline, but you got to know what you want to, you got to have a plan to do it. And then you got to take action and talk about it like you already achieved it. That's my
Which
secret. That's what I do.
and clearly you do it very well. And what you're saying is be in integrity with yourself.
Exactly.
That's where the accountability has to start.
Yes,
I mean, you didn't say, "Oh,
absolutely.
well, I'm good." You didn't throw in that entire list. It was, this is what I want to do this book. I want to do it by this date. This is the weekend I'm going to wrap it up. And you kept those seemingly unimportant dates. You kept those dates, those meetings with yourself.
Exactly. You
That's
have to
where
have the discipline.
you have to. And I think
Yeah.
the discipline comes from knowing what you want. If you really want that, you'll be excited to keep those appointments with yourself, if you will.
Yeah. That's how you have to, that's where the accountability piece comes in, is that you can wish all you want for success, for money, for freedom, for whatever it is that your heart is yearning for, but you can't wish it. You have to take action,
Mhm,
and it needs to be action with intention
mm.
and moving forward in the direction that you want to move. And so that's where like the personal responsibility and accountability piece comes for me, is like, look, I know that these are the things I want to achieve. This is the kind of person I want to be. And I'm not going to do that if I don't put in the work. I can't just wish it to be. And I
Mhm.
think that's what separates people who are really successful at whatever they are in life, even if it has nothing to do with money or
Right.
achievements or anything, whatever it is that you want in your life, you have to intentionally and actively make decisions to put yourself in that situation, to create that kind of life that you want. And I think a lot of people do not understand it. I love this. I'm not a Swiftie, but I went to a Taylor Swift concert last year, and I was so blown away by her. It was the most incredible performance, and how she is changing like the global economy is that she knows what she wants and she works so hard. It is not talent. It's working your butt off. And like that is what can happen with this small little town, country singer from Nashville, when you are really, really clear at what you want and you are doing what brings you joy and what's your passion, and you work hard, to put those things into place, you can achieve those things. And so I've read this article that talked about like Taylor Swift is one of the hardest working artists who's out there. And it's so true. And that's why she's so incredibly successful. The reason I am where I am today is because I work hard to make the things that I want to happen in my life happen.
I think so many are afraid of the words work hard.
Yeah.
That does not mean, and you brought it up in there, she does what she loves and she works hard.
Yeah.
You knew what you wanted to do,
Yep.
and you now experience joy, as we just spoke about,
Yep.
while you're working hard.
Yeah.
And I don't think that a lot of people put those things, joy and working hard, together.
Yeah.
And you are living proof. She is certainly living proof globally
Yeah.
already. And when you're running for president, which will be so much fun and fabulous, you will be proving even to more people. This is really, it's just so important. And I can't wait till our next conversation. But please leave with the audience. What do you want to leave with them? Please, would you hold your book up again? I apologize. Mine has not been received yet. There you go.
Yeah.
And
Here's the ownership mindset. Yeah.
and what would you suggest to them as you leave today? What are your closing thoughts? What you'd like them to do to follow you, to give them some good instruction?
Sure. So I'll start with the number one mindset you can have is the ownership mindset. And the ownership mindset is purely the mindset of I am responsible for everything that happens in my life. Things do not happen to me, they happen because of me. And even if you are a victim of circumstance, because it happens, where things do happen to you that were out of your control, you are still in charge of how you are going to respond to it.
Mhm.
And you literally can change your mindset if you decide, I am going to own it. Just like I did. I picked myself up off of the floor of my apartment and I decided I wanted to live. I had $100,000. I was $100,000 in debt, and I had a drug problem. And I said, I am changing my life. And I started by saying, I'm responsible for everything that happens in my life. It's nobody else's fault. I am the reason why I am in this situation. And it's so incredibly empowering. You empower yourself when you say, I can fix this, I can do it. And so that's what I would like to leave with you. And it's the combination of personal responsibility. Personal responsibility is this idea of I'm responsible for my life, and accountability is the piece that says I am going to make sure I do what I say I'm going to do. I'm going to keep the promises to myself, and I'm going to keep my promises to other people. That's the difference. Responsibility is saying I'm here for me, and accountability is I do what I say I'm going to do. So put those things two together, and you can dramatically change your life.
Yes, and get this book. I can't wait
Yeah.
till time gets here. I didn't know about it till we had our first conversation. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. What a beautiful example. If your mom is still with us on
She
this,
is. She's my
please.
best friend. She's here.
Oh,
She
of
lives here with
course.
me in Durango. Yeah, she doesn't live with me in Durango, but we live in the same town. I see her, multiple times a week, and I talk to her every single day.
Please tell her that I say, and I know the audience does as well, that to thank her for being such a great example. And
Yeah.
thank you. And I can't wait till our next conversation.
I know. I know.
And
Me too. Thank you so much for having me.
well, I'm a complete privilege. I thank you so much, and I can't wait to talk to you again. I'll shoot you a text in just a minute. Thank
Sounds
you so
good.
much.
Thank you.